Hi everyone, this is Kyle with K-Debate. I wanted to do a shorter video today, in contrast to the very long videos I've been making, the past two anyway. And this one's about Edward Snowden, the guy that pretty much, he worked for a government institution. He found documentation pretty much that showed corruption, like bad things happening, illegal activity from the government. And he gave that paperwork to journalists. He gave it to the news media to peruse and to determine if it was against the law and if the people of the United States deserved to know that their government was breaking the law, or if the law was broken, stuff like that. And it was shown that yes, the government was breaking the law, and he was immediately deemed a terrorist for stealing government documents and committing acts of espionage against the government, like saying, hey, you're trying to damage the government, therefore it's a terrorist act against the government, espionage and stuff like that. It's pretty much what WikiLeaks does constantly, and whoever was hacking Hillary's emails and stuff like that, those are considered acts of espionage or acts of terrorism or acts of just they're against the law. We have very, very strong laws against damaging the government purposely. And what Edward Snowden did was technically espionage, because he stole government documents and gave them to people that were not allowed to have them. And it was very sensitive information, it was very personal information, and that idea is the same idea of why WikiLeaks people are trying to get those people sent to prison as well. Is you're hacking into or stealing government documents or private information and just sending it to where it doesn't belong. And I'm not saying that it's not illegal. It is. It's extremely illegal. But Edward Snowden has been trapped in Russia for a very long time. Apparently he was abroad when they shut down his passport and he wasn't allowed to come back. He wasn't allowed to go anywhere. So he's kind of stuck there. Now, what caught my attention yesterday, and I looked into it a little bit today, is apparently, because yesterday I saw an article on him asking to be pardoned by Obama before the next president comes in. And then I was like, that seems kind of realistic, because depending on which president gets in, I don't think either of the candidates actually wants to pardon him. So hoping Obama would, that's kind of, I thought that would be a reasonable thing. Turns out he didn't. He said he will never ask to be pardoned, though he does want to be pardoned. He just won't ask to be, because he knows what he did was extremely dangerous. He could have been hurting people or releasing bad information, stuff like that. So he wasn't sure. And so he understood that what he did was against the law, and there was a reason there was a law there. And that, of course, it turned out to be true, what he sent out. So people are considering him a hero. People are considering him a public servant, somebody that's willing to sacrifice their own well-being for the sake of a broader group of people. And that's how I look at it. I don't see WikiLeaks like that. I think WikiLeaks is more of a self-servient kind of, we have an agenda that we're pushing and we're going to only pursue that. Like if we find something that we don't want to be known, we won't share it. But if we find something that we do, we're going to make sure everyone gets it. And that's more self-servient. It's not somebody that just happened to find it and is like, this is bad, somebody should know, and then do that. So WikiLeaks I consider more of an espionage agency, more of a terrorist organization. Not in that they kill people, but that they really, really, really have this powerful ideological agenda that they're trying to hurt one group so that another group can succeed. And I know that that's most large-scale political groups, but these people don't follow the law. WikiLeaks does not follow the law. They go against the law. That's why most of them are, wanted. So Snowden is wanted. He's just in a country that they can't really get him. And obviously he's not going to turn himself in. He might, maybe. But He's never shown interest in doing that. WikiLeaks, somebody commented a few days ago about one of the leaders of WikiLeaks offering something, and I don't remember what it was, but it was they wanted something and they were going to turn themselves in if they got it, and I don't remember what it is. But it's just this idea that laws exist for a reason. Like, that's the idea of a law, is what I mean. The idea of a law is that they should exist for a reason, whether it be a moral, reaffirming a moral. Like, don't kill people because that's bad. Don't steal from people, it's bad. The social status the people have, protecting ownership or protecting like a civil union or marriage, or you're not allowed to hurt somebody because you disagree with them, stuff like that. The laws exist to reaffirm morals and shape a culture. And the anti-espionage laws, the don't steal from the government, don't hurt the government laws exist because the government is there to protect you, the government is there to help you. Hurting the government or doing these things is automatically, through the government's enforcement, bad. So you don't want to do that. But if the government is doing something immoral, there should be a law to protect the people from the government, and there are. So what Snowden did was he rolled the dice. It was an informed decision, but he still rolled the dice in that when he released this information, he didn't know exactly if it was going to help or not. And it turned out that it did. So he took a risk. He paid the price for the risk. It still paid off for others. And the way I see what that means is he wants a pardon because it worked out and he has been punished significantly for something that was dangerous. Like if you go to jail for murder, or you go to jail for stealing something, or you go to jail for whatever, they had a victim. They had a negative impact on society. What he did had a potential for a negative aspect on society. Definitely, it could have caused a lot of problems needlessly, but it didn't. It was, and this is the argument of moral luck. Like, drinking and driving is bad, but drinking and driving and it hits somebody is worse. Even though you still broke the law in the same manner, it's just one of them happened to end up worse. So it's really hard to differentiate that with what he did, because it was dangerous. It was against the law. It was dangerous. But the punishment and the response to it is very strange, because there's a lot of people that say he broke the law, period, that nothing else matters. And that in itself is missing the point of what a law is, what a law exists for. And so you have to put situational awareness to a law. So if you have a law that says don't do this, but you have to do it, and you do it, and then you're immediately punished. It's like, but you didn't have a choice. You didn't have an out for this, and that actually happens for certain things. Like I'm trying to think of a good example, but there's federal law, and then there's state laws, and then there's there was that point in California where it was illegal it was legal to get marijuana, but it wasn't legal to have marijuana, so people were being prescribed it and then arrested for having it, even though they illegally obtained it, and it was really weird. But there's a lot of people that they're punished for things that don't really make sense, is what I'm trying to say. Is the laws aren't connected very well. The laws aren't enforced in a way that makes sense. So he took a risk. He helped people. He actually helped bring awareness to a corrupt government activity. They were denying it was happening. They said it wasn't going to happen. He found out it was. He proved that it was. And then he was punished by the people that he hurt, which was the government. And the government just won't let him come back. So, well, they want him to come back so they can put him in jail. But, so the concept of the law that is punishing him is not being enforced in context. It's not being talked about in context, at least for most people. Is he broke a law, period. Nothing else matters. He is a terrorist. He is an enemy of the government, blah, blah, blah. So that's the idea of why he's not coming back, is that fear that no matter why he did it and no matter what the outcome of what he actually did was still against the law, and that's all people are going to care about. And he's going to be deemed the same kind of person as WikiLeaks. And people get him confused all the time. He is not part of WikiLeaks. He hates WikiLeaks. They're a self-servient, ideological, they push certain agendas and they try to hurt certain people. And yeah, they do good things sometimes, but generally that's only a byproduct for what they're trying to do, which is their own ideas. So you have somebody that is being punished, Snowden. And when I look at this, if you put it into context of all the stuff that's going on, does he deserve a pardon? Does he deserve to be able to come back? He lost his job, he lost his wife, he lost all of his friends, he lost his freedom in the United States. He gave all of it up, not purposely, but he what is he supposed to do now? If he comes back, he's not going to be able to do anything. He's going to go to jail probably for most of his life. And I don't see that as justice. I don't see that as a law that makes sense. The context of what happened was not him trying to damage the government. He wasn't stealing the government's paperwork so that he can benefit from it. He wasn't stealing it so he could hurt the government with it. If the government, this is the difference between nationalism and patriotism, by the way. Nationalism is pretty much that your government can do no wrong, they are the best because they are yours, stuff like that. Patriotism is when you honestly see the potential and the goodness of your government and that you try to bring out the best in it. You try to bring out what makes a government great and not just that it automatically is. That's what nationalism is. Nationalism is your government is always the best, your country is always the best, and it's very dangerous. That's what that's what Nazi Germany was. That's what most of the Soviet Union was. That's what North Korea is, at least with their leadership. And that nationalism is really bad. But that's not what he was trying to do. He was saying pretty much. I'm not trying to put words in his mouth, but he saw something that the government was doing wrong, and that the government was lying about. It's like, this is wrong, and it's another example I try to give when I talk about this with people is a friend. If you care about somebody and they're doing something wrong, like objectively wrong, like beating their children or being addicted to heroin or something like that, you try to help them stop doing that. You're not trying to punish them because they're a bad person. Some people that would be vindictiveness or some kind of punishment for the sake of they deserve it or whatever like that. And in some cases, that's why you go to jail for beating your children or whatever. But what I'm talking about is you don't want them to be that kind of person because you know that they don't want to be that kind of person. Like, that's not a good person to be. And so you will take, like I've had a friend, and I know I'm jumping from thing to thing, but this is how I explain something. I had a friend, he was a good friend of mine. We went shopping after school one day. We were very young. We were like 17, 16. And we went to a store after we got out of school, and we went to a couple of different ones. There was a card shop, there was a couple of toy stores, stuff like that. We were just looking around. And I ended up buying something small, and he ended up buying something small, and we were coming home, and we were walking through a field, and we were going home, and he started pulling Yu-Gi-Oh cards out of his pockets, like a lot of them. I was like, when did you get those? It's like, oh, I stole them. And I'm like, no. And this is where I got a little, I personally had an issue, is I told him flat to his face, if I ever see you stealing, I will rat you out to the people. And I wasn't trying to be like a snitch or a rat or a narc or whatever the heck you want to word. I believed he was better than that. I believed that he deserved somebody to call him out on that kind of BS. Is you're being a thief, you're stealing from people, they don't deserve it, you're better than that. And I told him that, and he never stole, or at least never admitted to stealing around me again. And I've talked to him since then. He showed regret for his actions. He's matured significantly since then. And I don't think it was because I called him out on it, but I wasn't going to enable it. I wasn't going to help him do this. I saw something that was wrong, and I could have said, go put it back, go bring it back and apologize and take the repercussions of it. But I didn't do that. I was young. I didn't understand fully. But I called him out on it, and that's the same thing Snowden did. He said, you're doing something wrong. You shouldn't be doing this. He was trying to be a patriot. He was trying to be what the government and what the people that the government represents deserve to have done. Anyone who was a good person should have done what he did, in theory. And that's why it's difficult to pin down properly, because it was a roll of the dice. He didn't know. But given all the information we've learned since then, yes, he did do the right thing. And if I was in his position, I hope I would have the courage to do the same thing, is to step up against the United States government, one of the most powerful governments in the world, and say, you did something wrong, admit to it, fix it, apologize, and do the right thing instead. And they did some of that. They didn't really do all of it, and I don't think it actually had a lasting effect, which is sad, but the people deserve to know. Snowden was punished because of him doing what he believed he should have done. And he's been on the news, I think a few days ago, about not asking for a pardon, but wanting a pardon. He wants to come back. He loves this country. He sacrificed everything for this country. And no, he didn't die, but effectively he can never come back. And to some people, that's just as bad. He's living in Russia, which obviously I don't think is like a bad place to live just automatically, but it's not America. It's not where he grew up. It's not where he loved to be. It's not where his family is. And he didn't have a choice. So all of this, and I know I'm getting a little bit longer than I was expecting, but all of this idea of why do laws exist, and how should they be enforced, and why should they be enforced. Snowden did something that was dangerous. It should go to trial. It should be looked at. It should be seen from every angle and properly determined if what he did was wrong. That should happen. But it's right now, it's just an automatic, you go to jail for 20-something years minimum, and that's why he can't come back. He will be considered a terrorist in some regards, an agent of against the government, and that kind of response to something that a lot of people consider a heroic act, it bothers me. It makes me feel worried about, why are whistleblowers punished when they're just trying to do the right thing? And we have laws to protect whistleblowers. But most of the time, when somebody does that, the whistleblower is punished severely, and the people that are found out get a slap on the wrist. And I'm not saying every time. I'm not saying it's every time, but there is a trend in that, and it has to start with the government. It has to start with the government saying, we will admit our wrongs when we do it. He found out about something. We got caught. We're sorry. We shouldn't have done it in the first place. We had these justifications and whatever, and we're going to fix it. And then the other government agencies can use that as a standard. And then the businesses that follow the government standard can have a better standard. And the people within that feel more safe, that they can go forward and say, my manager, I saw him stealing from funds, and now I'm gonna risk my job, and I'm gonna risk my pension, I'm gonna risk everything by exposing him. Please protect me. But they don't see the government doing that, so why are they going to step up? And so corruption spreads. And that's the idea of why a law exists. And we have laws to protect whistleblowers so that they can come forward safely. But the government's not enforcing them with themselves, and they're not setting a good precedent. They're not setting an example. So Snowden deserves fair treatment at the very least. I'm not saying he should be automatically 100% pardoned until it's been looked at more thoroughly, because I don't know. But from what I've seen, he has not gotten what he deserves, even the most lenient attempt at looking into it. And not lenient, I mean the lenient as in even the most casual looking into it. He's not gotten that. People are very divided. Extreme, he should be persecuted at the full extent of the law, or he should be pardoned. And I want there to be an analysis on that. And it's not something that I've really seen, at least not recently, maybe when it first happened, but it's just, there's so many things related to this that I find are not being treated right, not being treated the way they should be. And he's a human being. He has rights no matter where he is in the world, human rights. And I think that consideration is one of those. And if the consideration leads to him still being prosecuted or still being treated as that way, then at least it was taken fairly. It wasn't just, we don't like him because. It's we found it to be because. And that's the kind of thing that we should do, and we're not doing it, at least not in this regard. So Edward Snowden, that's my take on that. So look it up. Look all the information. I didn't really give a lot. It was more explanation of the different concepts of it. But look up who he is. Look at he is not the WikiLeaks people. He's not. He did one thing. WikiLeaks does hundreds of things, but he did one thing. It's very clear that he did it for the reasons he gave, at least. He made it clear why he did it and what he did, and just stuff like that. So make sure you don't mix those two things up, because that's bad. But I guess that's it. I'm going to end the video here. I hope this was entertaining. I hope it was informative. I hope you enjoyed it, and I hope to see you in the next video, and peace.